Peonies are really ruffly, and I like to break them down into individual petals by creating C shapes like the one you see here. It's a gentle curve upwards in the shape of a C. You can do it the traditional way, or you can flip it so that it's backwards. I like to go from side to side and then fill in the middle. I also like to start from the bottom and drag my brush upwards and fill in as I go. That creates a really nice organic petal shape. You can also start from top to bottom, dragging from top to bottom, and you can see how they're just these really gentle C shapes. Do the edges and then kind of fill in the centers as you go. For this next one, I'm going to add a little more paint so it's more pigmented. And I have a backward C shape. And I'm just creating a nice crescent. This would be ideal for the outside of the peony. Now that we've had a quick introduction into petal shapes and painting individual petals, I want you to look at this reference photo. It can be a little intimidating to see that many petals, and we're going to really simplify it. I like to think of it as painting on a clock. Pick a number around a clock and start there and then work your way around the clock. I'm starting around 10 or 11, just creating a really gentle petal just like we did earlier. And then going to the right, going to the left, just creating these nice soft C-shaped petals. Start with the sides and then fill in the middle. You can add more paint as you go along. And because you're doing wet on wet, the colors will bleed really nicely into each other. As I reach the bottom, I'm creating a much bigger petal shape because it is in the foreground and you'll be able to see more of it. Now I'm going back to the top and creating the same petal shape with these nice C motions so that my whole circle is filled in. Now you can see how we've used the exact same method on every petal with just slight variations, and it's turned into the most beautiful looking peony. As we go closer to the center, our petal shapes are going to get smaller and darker. We're just doing the same method, just smaller movements. And as we get even closer to the center, use the tip of your brush to create very fine lines. I'm just going to spread out this paint just a little bit. Got a little bit, it bled too much, so I'm just spreading it around. But I want to show you a more up-close look at how I create the center lines. I just put barely any pressure on the tip of my brush to create these nice fine lines. Barely any pressure. If you push down with your brush, you'll get a thicker, more broad line. Just like this. But if you gently, just barely touch the tip to the paper, you'll get a nice fine line. And that creates the illusion of the really, really tight petals towards the center of the flower. To finish it off, I'm going to add in some cadmium orange and yellow and just dab it in the center. You can see in the reference photo, there's just a hint of orange and yellow. All right, I threw you in the deep end there. It's a little tricky, so just take your time, press pause, and practice this until you're ready to move on to part 2.